Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, here to talk more about the Steam censorship story in regards to the payment processors. The Australian group that is taking credit for said payment processors doing everything. And then also speaking a little bit about community movements. Obviously, there's been a lot of traction on Stop Killing Games. There's the Stop Censoring Games website as well, available or live right now, I should say. But we'll talk all about that. I actually want to go over what a major developer, one of the more notable developers, and I believe one of the very first developers that has spoken out about this in terms of a very, very well-known developer. So we'll talk about that. All right, so let's get right into it. The creator of Nier, the popular JRPG franchise, Yoko Taro, spoke on his personal X account, which is... I honestly find it kind of insane that he would publicly post something like this. Now, it was posted in Japanese. There's a translation. Obviously, things are always going to get lost in translation. But again, credit to him for posting something on his personal Twitter account, because I would imagine that some developers, I should say, would be a little bit cautious about speaking out about this. But Yoko Taro noted on his Twitter account, and again, this is via a translation, about credit card payment companies refusing to process payments for legal adult content. Publishing and similar fields have always faced regulations that go beyond the law, but the fact that a payment processor, which is involved in the entire infrastructure of content distribution, can do such things at its own discretion seems to me to be a danger on a whole new level. It implies that by controlling payment processing companies, you can even censor another country's free speech. In a follow-up tweet, Yoko Taro noted, "I feel like it's not just a matter of censoring adult content or jeopardizing freedom of expression, but rather a security hole that endangers democracy itself." Now, in regards to Yoko Taro's specific statements on this, as noted on Automaton Media, the game director's statement was most likely triggered by the news that manga library Z is shutting down. The platform, which has preserved digital editions of out-of-print manga for the past 14 years, was initially pressured by international credit card companies to remove manga that contained certain words, and then abruptly forced to terminate all of its payment contracts, leaving it with no way to secure revenue for its authors. The cause cited for this was transactions involving adult content. In similar ways, Japanese comic, game, and art platforms like DL Site, Skeb, Fanchia, Pixiv, and Nikino have been forced to accommodate censorship requirements from payment processors and rely on alternative payment options that are largely underused by their users. You do have people advocating for crypto and things of that nature. The thing is, I know people are saying that with Steam. I don't think Steam is going to go the route of, oh, we're going to have a specific section of the store, but in this section of the store, you can only use this payment option. Steam itself is going to go the Band-Aid off approach, just rip the Band-Aid off and just take down all the games that the payment processors view as these are games that are violating the criteria that they have now established as far as games that are going to be allowed on the service. We've talked about it before, and I'll say it over and over again for the people in the back that are like, you guys care so much about sex adventures, maybe keep the gooning away. Again, it's not about that. It's about the limiting of creative development, because there are a lot of darker topics that could be utilized in mediums, whether it be video games, movies, etc., that could be utilized as a storytelling device. Nobody's forcing you to play these games. Whether or not some of these games be housed on Steam, that's another debate, and the individual games that are getting pulled right now from Steam, I personally don't care a lot about it, but we saw it with Ready or Not. Ready or Not has a lot of grim things being depicted, but that is the style of game Ready or Not is going for. And I'm not saying that the payment processors are advocating for a Ready or Not to get pulled, for a Witcher to get pulled. I mean, Witcher is one of the more lax examples, but you get the idea. More mature topics being explored in gaming. There's not an instance of that yet. However, the group that called for, these games and payment processors to take down these games also wanted Detroit Become Human to get pulled. And guess what? A lot of times in these situations, you give somebody an inch, they will ultimately take a mile, and it's about how far can this exactly go. Yeah, right now, it might not be a big story. It is a relatively big story at this point, but a story that has really everybody has picked up on. I don't think it's at that point, but we are one step away from that. I feel like Stop Killing Games got really big after the whole Ubisoft thing. That was a big aspect to it, the Ubisoft thing with the crew and everything like that. I think we're one big step away from this just exploding in notoriety, and that one step I would imagine would be an incredibly notable game featuring facing repercussions or getting pulled from Steam. At this point, the games that got pulled from Steam, they aren't the most well-known games. They aren't games that people are dying to go out and play. But imagine this, and again, use Detroit Become Human as a baseline for what some entities, let's not say all entities, but some entities would like pulled from Steam. If a game at the level of Detroit, let's just take Detroit, got pulled from Steam, okay, at that point, I think people would absolutely lose it, because that would be an indication, and it would be an emblematic indication of the level of games, a game that has an overwhelmingly positive reception, a game that is beloved within the gaming community, at least generally speaking. I'm not saying it's this 95 on Metacritic or anything like that, but that game has a really solid reception. If a game like that gets pulled, or a game like Stellar Blade, or a game like a Witcher 3, again, games that are that are relatively notable, or even a notch below that, because I think those three aforementioned games are like premier titles that, you know, maybe those won't get pulled, but there's a litany of other games that do explore darker themes or have darker thematics attached to it. And again, some of the stuff that are that's been outlined for the payment processors, I don't see the need for a lot of that stuff in gaming. However, there are going to be games that are going to approach darker topics, and they use it as a storytelling device as well, and they can be an effective storytelling device when you do explore these darker topics. And if this story of these games getting pulled, it can absolutely stifle creative expression, in the sense of, let's say a developer, not one that's backed by the biggest publisher in the world, wants to tell a darker narrative within their game and wants to explore that narrative with some darker topics. Well, how far can you go? There isn't really a rule that's in place, and those rules, as we've seen, they could be changed, they could be defined differently at a moment's notice. They could be changed just like that. So if one individual creates a game, and, you know, it can be a narrative-driven action game, and there's a topic explored. Like, yo, think about something like Berserk. Berserk is one of the most revered anime, and there's some gruesome things that happen in that anime, and, like, one particular element of that anime, I would be like, okay, if that anime was translated into a video game, and again, Berserk as a manga anime is one of the most beloved entertainment mediums, if that entire story was translated into a video game, you would think, based on some of the things that happen in that story, it would not be allowed. It explores some very dark, or the potential would be there, and the potential being there, I think, would be scary for any developer that's pouring a lot of time, money, resources into a product, and then ultimately at some point their game could get pulled because it's deemed to be a little bit too dark. I don't think we're at that level yet, but it's certainly something I can see people being worried about for us potentially getting to that level. And that brings me to the next point, in that Stop Killing Games. You know, this is a movement that started in a petition that officially reached 1.4 million signatures, and I bring this up because Stop Censoring Games has also come up, and games, as noted, removed from platforms like Steam and Patreon due to requirements of payment processing companies. You have Nexus Mods pulling mods, and so on and so forth. The censorship, as noted on Stop Censoring Games, is working. In private conversations with my fellow adult game developers, a number have been intimidated by these policies or preemptively compromised their artistic vision. That's what I'm saying. The compromisation of the artistic vision. And, you know, again, the game's getting pulled. I don't care about Sex Adventures or whatever the game is that got pulled, or the list of games. In a vacuum, those games don't matter to me right now. However, the limitation of what these games could be, I think that's certainly a talking point. And how far are we going to take it, as far as what are we gonna pull from Steam? Because if this is step one, if the payment processors are now viewed as an entity and an avenue, that's all it is. It's a means to an end for entities to utilize this. Oh, this is something that'll actually listen to us. This is one entity that will actually make Steam buck, or other platforms buck. Let's look at some other games. Let's look at that. Let's look at that. Let's try to make up points on why X game, Y game should be pulled. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of, oh, rise up gamers, we need to come together. I just think some of that I don't know. It's just not the thing I like to do. I just feel like as a collective entity, can we do some things? Yeah, absolutely. Fighting against payment processors, I think, that's going to be a little bit of a difficult task. And at this point, I don't think it's entered the point to the large majority of people in reality caring. Again, I think if it hits a heavy hitter, like a Detroit, like a Stellar Blade, like some of those other games that I mentioned, I think that's like the one final step where people will absolutely lose it. I think we are one step away from that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Interested to hear your guys' input, and I did think Yoko Taro's input was rather interesting, as Yoko put out a public statement, not necessarily on the Steam censorships directly, but as far as payment processors having that level of power. Certainly going to be a talking point, and a talking point that I know people have brought up for years and years about payment processors having so much power, but certainly now getting more traction within the gaming community. And there is the Stop Censoring Games movement. I'll leave a link to that in the description box below if you are interested. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.